This is Briant Wetzel, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Hell yeah. I like talking baseball. I spend a lot of my free time just thinking about it, writing about it, and challenging my beliefs about it. I spend too much time thinking about baseball. I enjoy modern games, and I was just listening to games all morning. That I love this time of year when you get those early games. And so, Pirates and Cardinals were throwing zeros at each other at a no hitter against the Pirates, and I just like that. But then I'll sit down and I'll dive into a book, man, and I'll be gone. I'll be in the newspaper archives. I love it. What got you so deeply hooked in this part of studying and loving baseball?
My family. My family's baseball's like my family sport. Like I have my step cousin was a coach of our high school team. My great uncle coached the high school team next town over to a state title. Just all got family that played a little bit of college ball, friends. I mean, my dad always made sure we watched Mickey Mantle giving that sad speech about alcohol and Ripken streak and the home run race and Williams at Fenway Park and
Yeah.
threw one hoppers up my feet as hard as he could. And I had to get 10 of them before we could go in for dinner, stuff like that. Yeah. Just family stuff. My pap was telling me about Walter Johnson and Christy Mathewson when I was in third grade,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to read a lot of those books that they would publish with like 20 stories about old baseball shit, like crazy stories. And I just read those and read those and read those. And yeah, it was always neat to me that there was always the next player over and the next player over that you could learn about. And so then I would go into the modern media. And I was born in 70. So, we're talking like the 80s primarily here. And I would get the latest edition of whatever, and it was all like the same stuff. And I'm like, where's the depth? Where's the richness? Like they're doing a good job, and you can only have so many pages, you can only so many words. But I wanted to just get lost more in the beauty of these players, the struggles they went through in their lives, and understanding that. I don't want all bios, but understanding like a day in baseball, like, Briant Wetzel, like back in 89, went 2 for 3 against a guy named Dirk Manger, whatever. And then on that day, a hawk flew 50 miles an hour, whatever it was. And you can take these little things, and it's just, to me, it's fascinating to look at history in terms of context, understanding that other people who had great careers still exist. We can still talk about them, but we just say, Ken Griffey Jr. is better than Willie Mays, and that's all we tend to say. And I'm like, there's so much more here. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, digging into it, like I've been researching Cuban ball players and stuff, and that's some of the stuff you read from back in the day. Some of the stuff they say is so modern, and they're like trash talking each other in the papers, trolling each other.
Right.
They call it in minor leagues everywhere. I read about a guy Armando Marsans. He's from Cuba. He was up in Connecticut, and he got a cold. They took him to the hospital. The neighboring team, he was in New Britain, Connecticut. Their rivals were in Hartford. A couple of guys came down from Hartford, pushed a dead body into the room he was going to go in because they knew he was superstitious. They pushed him into that room. He got freaked out by the dead body, hightailed it out of there, wanted to go home, went home. And that's like double A ball.
Yeah.
Guys planting dead bodies in bedrooms, scaring people.
Yeah, or like a guy like Joe Jackson who comes up and he's like, I'm just too country for you guys. Let me out of here. And they like, you're right. Maybe come back, and just sold his contract. And it was hard. One of the things that I've realized is when you really dig into this stuff, you start to realize how many factors keep someone from going into a major league career. And so I'm pretty hard line on this, and you don't have to agree with this, but when we reduce things to integration and like pre-integration sucks, like we understand how hard it was to even get to the major leagues. Not like be good enough, but like the fact that Walter Johnson came from Idaho to the big leagues is like unheard of back then. It's a miracle that it happened. And so there's a lot of Walter Johnsons out there that never got a chance to play. If you look at like the representation per state or per country, most countries have never had a major leaguer. You telling me that nobody in that history of Kenya could ever play baseball, or do they just not have access to it? So it's not just like things like, of course, racism is bad, right? We understand that, but there are so many things, malaria, fevers of different kinds that just aren't common anymore. But the geography, if you lived in Washington State, chances were you wouldn't really have the opportunity to go and play Major League Baseball because it was just more accessible in, say, Illinois.
Yeah. Some guys, I mean, you had, well, like Smokey Joe Wood came from Colorado, and it kind of, things kind of evened out there. I feel like by the 1900s, 19 teens, I would say we have a lot more guys coming in from the West. Like John McGraw went out to LA and tried to sign Walter Johnson with Christy Mathewson with him. Like guys were traveling around pretty decent by then. Hal Chase came from out west. But
yeah, but if you're in a cold weather state, you don't play as much ball.
Right.
You know, there's all these things that go into that. Arizona wasn't a state, so there's just a lot of factors that limit, and that's just access, right? And so if you hired 20 more scouts, you maybe find more players. But was baseball the predominant thing that people did? You know, that's one of the benefits. Like it was a lot of boxers that probably could have been baseball players back then. It's just the pathway to baseball was so varied and complex. And boy, accidental deaths and accidental namings back in up until, gosh, I don't know, almost like 1980. The accidents were just horrific for Americans in general.
Yeah, there was a pretty good talent pipeline to the majors. Like the minor leagues you didn't have official minor league clubs underneath you until like Branch Rickey, you know what I mean, in the 30s.
Uh-huh.
But there was the Northeast, yeah, you couldn't play. But from what I was reading, like down south, because the South was so rural, like the travel was difficult. The fields were swampy. There were mosquitoes. People didn't want to come out. And up north was actually like there was better playing up there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like not like today where everyone's down south because the weather's all nice and everything. Like the South was so. You said Joe Jackson's from wherever down there, middle of nowhere, South Carolina. They're just, you know, playing with no shoes on. Like they're out there. Yeah, the Northeast, it was like the Mecca basically. Like the Cubans started. I'm just talking about the Cubans because that's what I've been researching. Yeah. That's where they were down there. Things were sloppy, poorly organized. They went up to Connecticut, and it was like, whoa, you know, this is serious. These guys are for real. We don't have to travel so far. There's not so much bullshit. There's not all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Travel, health, just I guess the overall point is if you limit it to ethnicity, you're missing a lot of factors that denied talent to getting to the game. So if you were Jamaican before some year, it was just impossible. There was no pathway. If you were Dominican before a certain year, skin color aside, there was just no pathway. It wasn't thought of as being possible. Venezuelan, Curaçaoan, Honduran, whatever it was, there just wasn't a reliable pathway for these places. And the organizations weren't the behemoths that they are now. And so we're like, hey, I want to go explore all of Mexico and come back with baseball players. Right. Maybe the Dodgers say yes when they were in LA, but before that, yeah, good luck. Like that's not a job around here. Here's a job for you, you know, and you get a different job and you go run through Illinois or, you know, Southern Indiana trying to find ball players. And so, yeah, I guess the overall thing is the pipeline's there, but the capacity of the pipeline is limited to what it's still a true thing where a Major League Baseball team today can spend $20 million on analysts and development guys, and they could go out and they will find more talent for the field than the one player you might sign for $20 million. Right. Because they can go out and they can just find, there's just so much that's not covered still to this day with all the fancy numbers and all that kind of stuff. There's just a lot that isn't seen.
Yeah, like I think it was in your article, I read it. It might have been another one, but at one point, some of the teams weren't even scouting their own Dominican teenage teams.
Yeah,
playing whole seasons down there, they weren't even watching them.
That's remarkable, right?
Yeah, you got yeah.
You talked about the Dodgers. Let's talk about them a little bit because I think the common perception, the easy perception, and look, everybody's got to do what they got to do, but that the Dodgers just buy their way to championships. Before they won last year, though, it was like they haven't won. You know, Mickey Mouse World Series in 2020, and so all of a sudden it flipped over from mocking them to hating them because they'd spent all this money.
Yeah, and like we talked about before, the Dodgers have been doing this for 80 years. It's nothing new they're doing. They were funded well by the O'Malleys. They had that Alan Roth in there we talked about, doing the early statistical work, coming up with handedness splits and runner in scoring position, how you did in this park, et cetera, et cetera. Some people call him the father of sabermetrics. But I think that's a little bit, I mean, that's almost like, is a chariot racer the father of NASCAR? You know, it's not exactly the same thing. They credit him for developing on base percentage. I don't know. They counted walks as hits in like 1886. I mean, we already had a whole season of. I think that's a little extreme, but he's definitely ahead of his time. Like, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
And the Dodgers were ahead of their time. They got Clemente. They lost Clemente. They were scouting the Caribbean back then.
Yeah.
I read that Branch Rickey when he was looking to break the color barrier. Supposedly, he looked at Silvio Garcia. He was a black shortstop, and I guess he was thinking the water boy thing where you can't hear the boos, you know, you're just going to send him out there and he won't know what's going on. He'll just be black. And then they asked, I guess he had a translator ask him something, what are you going to do if there's a fight? And he was like, well, I'm a fight. And they're like, well, you know, you can't have that. So they went for the college boy from UCLA, you know.
All right.
Yeah. They had what's his name? Sandy Amorose made that big catch in the World Series for him. Tons of Latin talent.
Tons of Latin talent. Yeah. And the ability to reliably develop it. You know, I used to live in Chicago right across from the ballpark in a rooftop house. And you would hear about all these prospects from the Cubs that are coming up. And I'm just going to name some names. I'm not picking on them, but like Corey Patterson, Felix PA, all these guys. And I look at the numbers and I'm like, what are you talking about? This guy isn't great at AA. How is he going to be great at major leagues? And then you'd watch him play. And again, I want all players to succeed and get 10 years and get a retirement or everything. But I'd watch Corey Patterson and I could see the defensive. I'm no baseball genius, but if I can see the defensive alignment, I know how they're going to pitch him. And when he rolls over a ball to third base because he's trying to pull every damn thing, you know, it's like, oh man, come on. You know, he doesn't have the ability to adapt. But the Dodgers have reliably for decades, better part of 100 years, they've found people. They had a guy named Fresco Thompson who was just brilliant at taking talent and making it better and graduating it just over and over and over again. And their minor league system was stacked with these managers who were incredible at just getting players to graduate, which you would think every team would want that. Like, how do we graduate players? Let's get these quality guys to go out there. These, you know, hard-nosed, you'll never know their names. Like, how many people know Fresco Thompson? Nobody, right? But they reliably did it. They reliably put good talent on the field and then improved it.
Yeah, and they've been doing that forever. That late 60s, Buckner, Valentine, Garvey, Say, Russell. I can't pronounce his name. Grabovich, whatever his name was,
sure.
won a Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
90s. My God, dude. Hollinsworth, Hundley, Raul Mondesi, Chan-Ho Park. It's just over. They do it over and over again. And people act like this is some kind of new thing, you know. Jason
Worth, he's a guy who really blossomed and went to
Victorino,
Phillies, right? Yeah, and Victorino. Yeah, these Worth specifically was a Rookie of the Year candidate. Kareem Garcia was another guy who came up. He didn't totally thrive, but he had a real major league career. Roger Cedeno, same era. You know, they can't all win Rookie of the Year, but Roger Cedeno was a pretty good player. If you're going to pick an outcome for a kid in high school, like, hey, you get to be as good as Roger Cedeno, every kid would be like, hell yeah, I'll take that. And he has a career that hardly anybody remembers, but he had a real career and did things, came up through the Dodgers. There's so many players that we could talk about that are known that they found.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It really is. They've done it. Like you read those accounts of like the Dodgers gave extra flight money. The Dodgers built a golf course for their minority players. The Dodgers put their guys up first class. I know O'Malley founded a program. He called it the Sports Management Program. I can't remember what college it was at, specifically to train just employees to work around the stadium. Like just incredible attention to detail for almost a century now. And they're not the only team to do that. Like people complain about, like, sorry to cut you off there, but like people talk about, oh, we need a salary floor and stuff. The Pirates can't compete. Dude, the Pirates were good from 1900 to 1992, pretty much. mean, you can't just be great forever. You're not going to be. The Dodgers will fall off. Like,
Yep.
People just lose their heads, and then you end up with strikes and labor strife and public opinion that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, right now the Dodgers are hot, right? And they're peak Dodgering right now. But yeah, at some point they'll fall off. Not all the prospects will work out. We've already seen this year. Snell is already on the DL, and the other day Glasnow had to come out with a sore something or other, And so they have to run through a lot of players to get this done, and it costs a lot of money. But they generate a ton of money. I mean, my buddy DJ Severe, who's the DJ for the Dodgers. He's the most listened to live DJ in the world. Because there's just so many people. Huh?
I never thought about that with like a DJ at ballpark being the most listened to. Huh.
Yeah. Because there's so many games, then there's playoffs, and all of a sudden he's well over 4 million people a year. And it's just hard to find somebody who's live in front of an audience doing that. Maybe F1 has a guy who does the whole event and he travels, but I doubt that person travels. I bet it's event specific.
You just blew my mind with that.
Think about it.
Yeah, I know.
You could be a great DJ in Ibiza, but you're not going to get to 1 million people in a year.
Yeah. The Phillies organ player just will not stop playing. They're not like us every game. Oh my goodness. They got to have the record for playing. It's not like you're not like us. I mean,
yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So when we think about the Dodgers and what they do well, obviously they find and develop talent, but they also, it's not just who you draft, right? It's like going to Korea, it's going to China, it's going to these emerging markets. And I say emerging about Korea. Korea is well established, but still in baseball terms, it's not a reliable pipeline to send a graduates player. But that's just the tip of the iceberg because there's so much more beyond that.
Yeah, just to go back to that quick, they tried signing Shigeo Nagashima from Japan in the early 60s. He was like, from what I understand, he was like the second best player of his time behind Sadahara O.
Right.
So they were even over there, messing around.
Yeah. And then one of the things they do, because they know they need pitching, they don't mind fielding, this is getting a crazy number, 35 to 40 pitchers a year on a 40-man roster. I mean, they don't mind, and they process this. And this is credit to the org, but also to Doc. When Dave Roberts is managing that ain't easy. And yet reliably, the Dodgers will find and rehabilitate a Tony Watson, a Phil Bickford. I mean, like the first guy come out of the bullpen for a couple of years there was Phil Bickford, who commonly available. Anybody could have had him. Anybody. And Brazier, who's now, I think, on the Cubs, right out of the bullpen, reliable guy. Here he comes. Right now we got this guy, Banda. Just where was he from? Anybody could have had him, but the Dodgers found him. And that costs money, and it goes into the big pile, but anybody could have had Max Muncy.
Yeah.
But they found him. They developed him.
They scooped Banda up out of Mexico, didn't they? Or Banda? Or
I think so, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Just anybody could have had these guys. And then Rob Nair and I were talking about this when I had him on the show the other day. They routinely do these trades, and it's just total robbery because not only can they fix something, or they can see that, like, just throw your slider. That's all we want you to do. And then all of a sudden that player's value just goes up. They come in and they routinely rob these teams. Like they turned primarily Miguel Vargas and a very good lottery pick, young, draftable, young major league talent. They turned that guy into Tommy Edman and that Michael Kopech guy, the guy from the White Sox, who right now is hurt, but came in and was great for the Dodgers in the bullpen coming down the stretch. It's incredible for a couple of prospects. One of them, not that great. One maybe lights out brilliant. And then Michael Vargas or Miguel Vargas, whatever you want, how you're going to say it.
Whatever.
That's incredible to get that much talent back for that.
Their pitching, the pitching is so interesting to me. Like Mark Pryor went to USC and he's kind of a disciple of Tom House, and the Dodgers are right there in LA, obviously. And House was, it's hard to find somebody who is an innovator who hasn't like really built off anything that came before him. But like Tom House with those biomechanics stuff, man, he was something else. And what's funny is people that hate the new style of pitching, which I do, but people will be like, back in the day, Nolan Ryan threw this many innings and got hurt so bad he pitched this many more years. Well, the guy that Tom House, the guy that founded biomechanics, is the one who made Nolan Ryan throw so long with the Rangers. He was instrumental, dude. If not for him, Ryan might have not had those years in Texas.
Yeah, because he was fading.
What's that?
He was fading. His career was not over, but it wasn't going to continue. He was done. Yeah. And House fixed him.
Put Charlie. I think he said. I was listening to him the other day. I think he said 4 out of 6 guys he worked with pitched to their mid 40s. It'd be like Kenny Rogers, Charlie Huff, Nolan Ryan. I can't remember the other guys. And so it's like, you can't, like, trying to think of how to word this, like, use the technology. Technology can be used to make the guys pitch efficiently and be healthy and pitch long. And I understand going after the velocity and stuff, but at what cost? Like, you can use them. You can use the numbers to be whatever you want them to be. Yeah. And I remember reading I read the Diamond of Praise by Tom House and Craig Wright. And in the one chapter, they made a huge point about the purpose of sabermetrics is to work with the coaches and work with the players. It's not to create, like, you don't put the cart before the horse. You don't do it to generate stats. You do it to improve the players. Like, and you don't, if the numbers say one thing and what you're seeing with your eyes says another, then you generally go with your eyes, is what they're saying. If it doesn't make sense, basically what they're saying is there's no point in having intelligence without wisdom, you know?
Yeah. There's something to be said for like one of the prevailing wisdoms that are I would say numerically driven decisions is putting Shohei Ohtani first. Now, look, the teammates are deciding the lineup in this case, so let's be a little easy on them. But like having like Aaron Judge, Shohei, having these guys lead off because you want them to get more at bats. I understand that belief, but the reality is those guys and a few other players, not all of the top players on teams are like this, but Soto, these guys are alphas among the alphas, and they are the protection. And so if you can make Vientos on the Mets better by putting him in front of Soto, then I'd rather have Soto drop down a little bit. And I'm saying Vientos because he kind of struggles. Maybe he's not able to reap the benefit of that. We should be able to look numerically, though, and say, hey, this guy, if he put the ball in the zone, he's going to pound it. Where he struggles is when he goes outside of the chase radius, whatever that's going to be. But you know that here's Soto looming in the background or Judge looming in the background. Like, we're going to have to get this guy out. We got to either get him out of the zone, and then you've given your player in front of them just a little bit more data. Is it going to improve them reliably? No, nothing in baseball is reliable. But to me, I'd rather have Soto being scary and being like, I have got to get Lindor out if I don't get him out. And I want to gas that pitcher as early as I can, trying to get someone like Lindor out, followed up by whoever, and then have Alonso bat behind. But we don't think like that on the Sabre world. We think that, if you just throw up more 3-pointers than the other team, you're going to win because you've thrown up more 3-pointers. Not that you're any better. You've just thrown up more 3-pointers and enough have gone in the pace of the game that you're hard to beat. And that's not exciting.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. When I see Ohtani and I see those 700 plate appearances, I'm like licking my lips. I'm like, oh, that looks good. I'd like to have him up that many times. But I'd also like to have him up with guys on base.
Yeah.
I've watched Schwarber for how many years now with the Phillies, hit league leading home runs, and he's got no one on base in front of him.
He is a miracle. I was looking at his numbers the other day, and I just cannot believe how incredible he is. And I love that and I don't know how, maybe you know this, how is he staying healthy? Because he has so much trouble early on staying healthy, and he's not the fittest looking person in the world. So what is he doing to stay healthy? And then what is it about his game that makes him so devastating is the word. There's certain guys that when you pitch to them, they determine if you've made a mistake or not. Like if you make a regular mistake, oh no, forget that. That's done. But they're like Barry Bonds back, nope, caught too much of the plate, didn't you? And you're like, that's my best pitch. And it just goes out. Schwarber is that kind of a guy.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't he also look like Babe Ruth too, though? I read an old scouting report about him where the scout actually said in the report, it's unbelievable how much he looks like Babe Ruth.
That's funny.
Yeah. But I mean, I like Schwarber. I got kind of pissed at him a couple years ago because I felt like he was dogging it in left field. So maybe that's how he kind of stayed healthy. But I mean, I like Schwarber, and he's the stereotypical sabermetric hitter, Ks, walks, home runs, doesn't extend the zone, great command of the strike zone. Yeah. Walks replace the what used to be singles, you know.
Yeah. When you talk about Schwarber, the player I put with him is Arise, because he's almost the antithesis of this. I love watching Luis play. I check his box score throughout the day when he's playing, because I'm just fascinated by what he does, because he's the and so if Schwarber is the prototypical sabermetric player, Arise is the antithesis of everything. Wow. It's like, you're not going to strike me out. I am going to win the BABIP battle, and so I'm going to get 180 to 215 hits. I'm going to get on base a lot, and I'm going to see a ton of pitches. Now, and maybe you disagree with me on this, and that's fine. But when I say he sees a ton of pitches, a lot of folks get mad because he doesn't see the most. But I'm like, he and Schwarber are essentially the same. The gap between them is that Schwarber sees more strike threes, and Arise doesn't see those. And I don't want a player that's going to see more strike. Look, Schwarber earns it, right? But Arise is also really, really valuable in that you are not going to get that guy out, not in the way that you want to. It's only going to be because the ball didn't go the right way for him that time. And a lot of times, man, he's dunking that ball to left field all the time.
Yeah, and like guys like Arias have been systematically removed from the game. I mean, he's a unicorn now. They used to have guys. You used to have your Tony Gwynns, your Kenny Loftons, and you had your big boppers and everything. And now everyone is forced into the same approach, same this, same that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I think about the pitch clock and how much time they have. And if I can apply pressure, because you're not going to skip a Rise, you're not going to strike him out. You certainly can't count on that, right? Because he's going to strike out 3 times a month. So you're forced to deal with him, and you're better off just honestly. The approach with him is just throw him strikes, and just let the odds be what the odds are. And if he gets on base, then fine, right? Because then he can't really hurt you. It's sort of like any player like that that's just hard to get out. Like, quit fucking around and just throw it down the middle and let him do with it whatever he's going to do, and just take that part of the hit. Otherwise, I'm wasting pitches on a guy that it just doesn't make sense to me, right? Like, you just have to let it go.
Well, I mean, strikeouts don't matter for hitters, but they're so important for pitchers. They'll rip their arms off to get them, which obviously doesn't make any sense, which is what I think Wright and House were getting at in the Diamond of Praise, where, look, maybe we can justify this mathematically, but when I say this out loud, like, how can they be the most important thing for a pitcher to do, and then it doesn't matter for the hitters? Like, whatever. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, yeah. When we see the evolution, and this is an area where I'm a little bit critical of the Dodgers, and I probably follow them the most closely just because I can only do so much, and the way they run the team fascinates me. But to get like a guy like Bruce Gratterall, and he's gassing 103, the easiest 103 you've ever seen, too, just out of his hand, and there it is. But it didn't elicit swing and miss. And so they started messing with his mechanics, trying to get more swing and miss, because that's what the numbers say. But his body said otherwise. And I don't know that he'll ever be the same pitcher, because the way he's hurt is a way that he's likely to stay hurt. So he'll come off the DL, throw until he can't throw. And sure, he gets more swing and miss, but I don't know that it's benefited him.
Yeah. I don't know that it's a benefit for anyone to be hurt as much as the pitchers are hurt. I mean, at this point, the pitcher is the most platoon position, I would say, in the history of sports. The most injured position in the history of sports. I mean, it's crazy.
When you say stuff like, I'm going to have thoracic outlet surgery so I can continue to pitch, what other job in the world is like, I need to remove this hunk of my rib so I can play? Like that's insane. We talk about performance enhancing drugs, and we got guys removing parts of their body or putting in dead people's bodies more than anybody else in all the sports combined. I mean, take all the knees. Okay, maybe, right? That's a lot of knees, but elbows, shoulders, backs, lats, all these things that get hurt now. I think it's not sustainable, but I'm afraid it's going to get worse.
Yeah, I don't see it getting any better. This has been talked about for Boros McCracken published his DIP study in 2000, fielding independent pitching, that basically implied that balls put in play are just luck. Like you can't really pitch to contact, whatever. There's
Right.
so much luck involved. We're just going to look at Ks, strikeouts, and home runs. Everything is 3 true outcomes, you know?
Right.
And this is kind of where I've been critical. They're the 3 true statistical outcomes. That they're not talking about winning, they're not talking about player development, they're talking about true statistical outcomes.
Yeah.
And they don't want like team baseball, like hitting behind a runner, moving a runner over, doing this, doing that, bunting. There's so many variables in that. When you try to put that into a projection, it's gonna make your projection less accurate. So you want 3 true statistical outcomes. You're training guys to produce these outcomes because, in my opinion, it's convenient for the formula. I'm not saying there's no value to these stats or anything, but it seems pretty obvious to me that these numbers have been chosen out of statistical convenience for the people who are calculating this information. That's my opinion. I'm not saying there's no value in it. I'm not saying some things weren't overvalued or undervalued. Sure. But like you'll hear people that seem to me to be too intelligent to say it, talking about, oh, batting average was, and this was the crux of the sabermetric movement in the 90s and 2000s. Batting average is dumb. On base percentage is where it's at. It's the famous line from Moneyball, the Greek god of walks, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, what have they given us? They talked about this. And for the last 10 years, we have, what is it? I wrote it down here somewhere. The lowest on base percentages, like the 8 lowest on base percentages since the mound was lowered. And I get data changes and I get new information comes in, but you still did exactly the opposite of what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
And what am I supposed to think other than it all looked great on paper? Sure.
Yeah.
But when you put it into the Phillies were the last team to have an analytics department in 2014. That's why I did 10 years. So since analytics has come in, on base percentage is actually plummeted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's one thing to have a theory, but then you have to go put it to test, and then you find out. I don't know if you recall, but the Diamondbacks kind of rejected the statistical analysis thing. It's like in the Gibson, La Russa, Dave Stewart era, and they paid for it, right? Or not. Maybe it was just a bad year, right? But it's so pervasive. And when people are like, Moneyball doesn't work, like, no, it does. But we have a lot more. Platooning isn't even like a worry anymore. Like it used to be like, oh, I can't platoon. I'm too good for that. And like, you know, this player is, but no, like, you understand, like, absolutely, there are people that hit left-handed and right-handed hit pitching better. And so that's a result of Moneyball. We don't bunt like we used to because we understand that's often throwing away an out. The quote everybody puts up is like, my shit doesn't work in the playoffs, but it does. And there's all the teams that win or advance the furthest are teams that are savvy to how numbers work. Doesn't mean it's good baseball. Doesn't mean that if Max Muncy can hit, I'm picking on Max. I like Max, but if Max Muncy can hit 196 and have 22 home runs and be valuable, don't tell me that someone can hit 306, you know, even with a slightly lower on base percentage and not be valuable. I mean, if you don't strike out, I love this number. Bill Buckner in his career, he often had more. This is Bill Buckner, more extra base hits than Joey Gallo had hits.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
And it's crazy when you think about that. Like, all right, I get that Gallo had value at one point. Again, not picking. I want Gallo to do great, but don't tell me that Bill Buckner is only worth 15 WAR. That means your WAR is broken, because this guy, everybody's like, great fielder, great warrior, toughest son of a bitch around, cannot strike him out, right? Well, I'll take one of those guys on my team. I'll let the cards fall where they may. Holy shit, what a great guy. You know, 2,700 hits. Oh my God. Why wouldn't I want that guy on my team? Well, his WAR is awful though. I don't care, because I want that guy on my team, because you're not going to beat that guy. He's unbeatable.
He's averaging like a hit and a half a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that. You tell me this guy's going to get me a hit and a half every game and not strike out? I can put that guy in the field. I understand he's not going to hit a lot of home runs. He's only maybe going to hit some doubles. I don't care, because he's going to force the defense to do stuff. And every time that happens, there's a chance for something good to happen. You know, if you strike out, it's not true for everybody, but if you strike out too much, it's just like you're not that valuable. You are not dangerous right now. You are an easy out.
at some point.
Mhm.
And that goes after that on-base percentage thing you're talking about.
Well, and no doubt pitching is harder to hit. Spin rates are better, velo's better. And don't get me wrong, if I was a player, I would want to know all that stuff. I would want to know my launch angle. I'd want to everything, dude. I would want to know it all.
Sure.
But like at the same time, there's so much talk about how OBP is down because the pitching is so good. Well, I just for 25 years listened to you guys degrade batting average. Last year, batting average made up 78% of the league's on base percentage. So you're telling me that, like, okay, for instance, Tom Tango developed Wins Run Created Plus at Fangraphs. I followed him on Twitter.
Yeah.
He made a post saying OPS is the best, rate stat, and OBP and slugging percentage are the pillars. Well, if you tell me to build you two pillars to put your OPS on, and I say, you come over and you say, Brian, 77% of this pillar's missing. What's going on here? And I'm like, oh, I thought that part of the pillar was worthless. Well, Brian, my OPS is laying on the ground. Like, oh, well, I don't think it's because of my pillar. It's 77% short. I think the wind blew it over. Like, that's crazy, dude. You can't say 77% of on base percentage is worthless and then blame something else when it tanks to lows not seen since the freaking Johnson administration. Like, you got to bear some responsibility for that. Like, it's not just, the pitching is so much better. The wind didn't just blow your freaking OPS down, dude. It's happened because your pillar isn't there.
Right.
And I don't know,
man.
there's something to be said. Like, you'd think I imagine Tom knows that. I'd imagine Tom knows that batting average makes up that much on base percentage.
And he probably would say something different if we had him here talking. He'd be like, yeah, of course. Like batting average, like, we have whatever. And he would have some kind of cagey answer that took him off of that extreme position and said, absolutely. Like if you have someone that gets on base at whatever, and 90% of it is batting average, of course there's value there. And maybe in that case, it's more valuable than the guy who has 75%. Maybe there's a line there where all of a sudden it's like you get anybody up in that zone. Wow, they become valuable because they can't hit behind the batter. They can't hit the ball the other way and create problems for the defense that they don't know how to solve.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not that like about Tango giving some answer about batting average. These guys, like, they've given us extreme statistical outcomes, and that's because there's an extreme. I don't want to use ideology too out there, but it's an extreme ideology, dude. They're not open to new ideas, man. You don't get extreme statistical outcomes like 50-year lows in on-base percentage and batting average, extreme amount of injuries to pitchers without taking an extreme approach. I don't think they're open to new information. That's
what we're talking about. Yeah.
That's like, I like the numbers, dude. I always have. I like looking at them, playing around with them, talking about them and stuff. But there's just a lot of stuff that gives me pause about it. Stuff like that, like I said about the two pillars, like it just, and about the batters. A strikeout is just another out for a batter, but dude, man, will go get his freaking arm ripped off to strike you out. Stuff like that. Just like, man. I don't
know what an ace is anymore. I know, like the preseason, it's like, oh, the Dodgers have 6 aces, and they left out Clayton Kershaw. I'm like, wait, I don't know that they have one ace on that team. And when I think about an ace,
who has an ace?
Are you a stopper? Are you the guy that's going to rest that bullpen? Like, these are hallmarks of an ace, and none of the guys are there. And I hate to look. I don't want to in any way bash on Ohtani, but he's not going to survive pitching. He's just not. He's on his third elbow. Yesterday's game, he took a swing and his hurt shoulder is opposite from his throwing shoulder. But his hurt shoulder kind of gave him a little hitch, it looked like, This is a guy that has used up a lot of body parts. He is wonderful. But the last thing I want him to do is running. If he's running at a league-leading rate, which he does, he's so fucking fast, and he's 200-something pounds, there's an actual medical paper that talks about the force that's applied to these guys. If there's anything out of alignment, you separate shoulders, you blow out ankles, things happen. And so I don't want him. I want him hitting the ball and just being great at that. And okay, steal the occasional base, but he's not going to be a great pitcher. He'll never be a better pitcher than Babe Ruth. He has this remarkable thing, and he's one of a kind, and I love watching him play. But he is delicate at this point in his career, And the Dodgers have to figure out what they're going to do. And if they're going to pitch him until he blows out, great. At some point, that's going to impact his offense as well.
Yeah, and I back to the pitching kind of. I'm surprised how many people are still talking about the rotation. And you've heard me tweet it, seen me tweet it before. The rotation, the starting. There's no rotation. There's no starting staff. That's right. Gone. That's been gone.
Yeah.
It just shocks me how many people is 100 or 200 wins the new 300 wins the win. It's gone. It's over. It's gone. I don't know how people don't see it. I mean, it's like I said, Tom Glavine and Aaron Nola don't play the same position.
No, they don't.
Like
Go ahead.
You say a starter would pitch until he was ineffective. These guys get pulled before they can screw up. Typically, completely the opposite. The Dodgers decided Yamamoto and Sasaki will start Saturdays and Sundays or something like that. It's not a rotation. They don't got a rotation.
Yeah, and maybe that'll work, right? But when Sasaki gets that one start a week and it doesn't go well, that's expensive.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. And now you got to use your bullpen. And then already they've had a bullpen game. I mean, Robieski starting yesterday was not technically a bullpen game.
They're all bullpen games.
Yeah, they're all right? Yeah, and that's how you end up with 40 pitchers on your roster.
Yeah, that's not really too out of the norm either.
Yeah,
having using that many guys.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
like
crazy. I wanted to. Yeah, go ahead.
You since I thought about this when I first started following you, you said something. It wasn't baseball; it was political, but it made me think. I can't remember who you were referencing, but you said the problem isn't so and so; it's Robespierre and Maximilien Robespierre. And you remember how during the French Revolution they tortured and killed the priests and shut the church down, said, you don't need all these old traditions that you've loved and you've passed down for all these years. And they created something called the cult of reason and another cult. And the cult basically consisted of the revolutionaries being like, look at our Declaration of the Rights of Man. Look, you don't need all these old traditions that you love and all this happiness. Look how reasonable I am. Look at me. Isn't this all you need? I'm so smart. Everything I do is right. I'm so reasonable.
Yeah.
And with the pitching, analytics has taken our pitcher versus pitcher duels, game-long pitcher versus hitter duels. I don't think we're going to see another pitcher make the Hall of Fame after Verlander, Scherzer, and whoever, Greinke and Kershaw.
Yeah, it's tough.
Like they've taken away our how we measure greatness, how we measure all this stuff. Yeah. And what have they given us in return, Pete? Look at my numbers, Pete. Look at my numbers. Look at how smart I am. Do you want to see Paul Skeens throw a complete game? Well, you don't need to because look at how smart I am, Pete.
I know.
Are you annoyed yet? Look at how smart I am, dude. And they wonder why people don't like him.
So
like there was,
it's true.
Recently there was a guy named Fuzzy that makes baseball YouTube videos, and he admitted he said I dumbed some stuff down to make analytics more relatable, and there was a huge backlash, dude. He got trolled. He was basically the victim of to go back to the French Revolution, a victim of a Jacobin purity mob, dude. Like he had to prove he was revolutionary enough. And someone leaked a WhatsApp message he sent to another pretty prominent analytics account. And he said to the guy, I'm trying to make this accessible to people. It sucks you're blinded by arrogance, dude. And that's how I look at a lot. Like, imagine the guy telling Jim Rice that he can't talk to a Red Sox player, dude. How do you tell it? What do you do? Do you pull the Donald Trump and say, shh, quiet, stop talking, stop? Like, what an asshole, bro.
Yeah.
And they wonder why people don't like him.
There's a lot you said in there. When I talk about Robespierre too, it's because everybody's desperate to find Hitler. And I'm like, you fuck. Robespierre is the problem here, but that's because Robespierre is more on their team. And so they don't think that. So everybody says all this shit that sounds cagey. And you're like, stop with this fucking thing. The Night of the Long Knives. No, please. So
sick name though. It's a bad event, but it's a cool ass name.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so a lot of this is that, and look, you and I both, we love numbers. We mess with them and try to figure them out, but neither of us falls in love with a number. We both if you threw something at me like, oh, his RBAT is something, I got to go, what's RBAT again? And then I got to go look at, and it's not that I'm unfamiliar. It's just I have certain tools I use, And for me, they kind of fit like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you know. But let me double check it with something else. Let me do a peer group thing. Okay, this is holding up, and so I'm pretty happy with how that number works. But like war or runs creative, these things have flaws. I mean, I'll tell you right now that war absolutely misses the value of Arise. It misses the value of Buckner. It misses the value of Butler because of the kind of player that they are. It doesn't understand those players. It doesn't understand that when a team played against Brett Butler, the entire infield would scooch in. They'd be as close to the action as possible, and the outfield would scooch in. He changed the nature of the game. You're telling me that that's not valuable? That a guy who gets that many hits and plays that many games in center field, that steals that many bases, granted he wasn't great at that, you're telling me he's not valuable at all? No, come on. And so when that's beyond the pale, when we like, there's certain numbers that I developed, like you've seen my stuff on C-WAR and you know, WAR rate accumulation. I understand that at some point those numbers no longer make sense. Like if you're not a great player, I can't correct your WAR because you don't get on the field often enough for it to matter. But I'm open to that. And I'm also open to critique if it's real critique. If it's just arguing, then I'm not interested in that. There's so many ways to measure this game, and Rob and I were talking about this. It's all measurable. And Pete would say it's all a competition. And so if I'm using my job as numbers and I see on base percentage going down and thinking it's valuable, I'm going to go find where the market is short on something, and I'm going to go get that. Like the A's getting Chris Davis because the league was like, pound the bottom of the strike zone. Like, well, who smashes the bottom of the strike zone? Chris Davis.
Yeah.
Get that guy for pennies on the dollars.
Yeah. I mean, you said all that stuff about Butler. I mean, that's hard to quantify.
Yeah.
It's not going to, your projections aren't going to be accurate.
Yeah.
As accurate as it could be. I think a lot of what they claim to be science is done for the sake of statistical convenience to make themselves look like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And when they're wrong, and this is where I'm going to be critical of the A's because I love the A's, but just because you make the right move and it's 51% advantageous, and so you're playing the odds, it doesn't mean that the audience can deal with that. And so A's fans, when we're our softest, we're like, they got rid of Donaldson. Well, you know, that wasn't ideal, and the trade didn't work out. If that trade had worked out, okay, great. Nobody's mad that they got rid of Zito. Nobody's mad that they got rid of the guys that didn't work out, you know, because they didn't work out. When it hurts is when you think there's something there. That lone gunslinger on the mound in the 7th inning, like out there trying to battle. I'm going to get through this part of the lineup one more time. Sit your ass back on the bench, manager. I'm going to go get this thing. We want to see that guy.
Yeah.
And we don't ever get to see him anymore. And I don't mind some risk avoidance because there's a lot of smarts in that. But I just want to see those pitchers have their chance to do their thing and not just get them at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah, and when Snell got pulled in the World Series, he said he wanted to stay in. Like he was visibly upset. Like he wanted to be in the game, you know. And how are you going to ever have a Hall of Fame pitcher if you're only throwing, like if you're a Dodgers pitcher opener, you have a better chance of being on the injured list for Game 7 of the World Series than you do see in the 6th inning. I mean, that's true. Like I don't know. Who wants to pitch? Why would you want to pitch?
Yeah.
No one's in their driveway dreaming of getting benched in the second quarter of an NBA game. You know what I mean? They're dreaming of playing at the end. You want to be in there at the end. You're dreaming of getting pulled in the 3rd inning of a World Series, dude. You're dreaming of pitching in the 9th.
I don't know how much teams do this, and they are way more professional than I am at this. But I know watching the Dodger game 5, and Smoltz called it too. He's like, "Look out." You know, Cole's been working hard, and you could see it in his body and his stature. Look, this guy's fantastically fit and everything, but he was huffing and puffing a bit, and I'm like, there's something could break right here because he's overtaxed right now, but he's not going to come out. And so this is one of those times where maybe that fatigue, you know, they did need to do some risk avoidance, but then you got to go to somebody to the bullpen. There is some of that in all of this. That's the maddening thing is like it was probably the right call for Snell, but we don't ever get to know, and that hurts the fans because Snell couldn't decide on the field. You know, it's like, this is my guy. This is my ace. I'm going to have my ace decide this thing. You know, it's wrong that Schoendienst stayed with Gibson in Game 7. He should have gone to his pen, but he didn't. and we love him for it, and we love
Yeah.
Gibson for doing it and taking on the next batter, right? But they should have pulled him. But we don't want to see that. We want to see Gibson fail on the mound. We want to come back on his shield. We want to see that. And we don't get to see that as much.
Yeah. I don't want to hear about how smart you are. You know what I mean? I don't want to see all the numbers. No one cares.
Yeah.
Like we said about Robespierre, you don't need to read Voltaire and Rousseau to know that Robespierre is an asshole, and you don't need to understand linear weights to know that some of these analytics guys are acting like assholes. You know?
Yeah. And sometimes taking a 60% average, to your advantage, is not the right call. Sometimes Tommy Lasorda, sometimes Vin Scully says, "Man, I don't think Gibson's going to play today." Gibson's like, "Motherfucker," and he gets out there and he starts banging fastballs. And then Tommy comes back. It's like, "Can you go?" Yep. Walks right out. Decision's already made. Gibson can't second. That doesn't happen anymore.
No,
I think that can't happen. But
a guy can, a hitter can come off the bench like that, yeah. But a pitcher can't. I mean, the pitching it's sad, man. I don't think it's good for the game. The guy touches the ball far more than anyone else. Stands in the middle of the field on a pedestal, like he's the star. He ought to be the star.
Yeah.
At least a lot of the time. I don't know, man. I don't
Is
think
the game still enjoyable though? I mean, like I enjoy the game still.
I mean, I don't think it's as enjoyable as it was.
Okay.
I'd like to see
how much of that is nostalgia.
I mean, a lot's changed. I mean, more has changed than any time since probably the live ball came into effect. So I mean, there's definitely some nostalgia there, but there has been a lot of changes. Just society-wide. I mean, the internet, dude. The technology that allowed Tom House to map Nolan Ryan's movements, dude. And there's a big difference between like the player development part of it and the statistical part of it. Like the player development where they're teaching these guys to throw in a way that gives them a good fit. Like they're doing it because that's what the teams want. Right. There's a difference between what the pitching labs and stuff are doing compared to what the teams want. I don't want to put it like you shouldn't be reading your launch angle, that you shouldn't know your speed. You should know all that. Fine. But we've already seen with what Tom House did for Nolan Ryan and Tom Brady that you can manage it. Like, sure, I know how to scap load and keep my arm back, keep my arm flat, and throw for more velocity. But why don't I just do that when I really need to dig down, when I got myself into some bullshit, so I'm not hurt 3 out of 7 years, so I can make the Hall of Fame, so I can win a Cy Young. Like the players at some point, I don't know, you'd think they would have to say something. I don't think the front office is going to stop, dude. Like I said, it's a hardline ideology. They produce hardline statistical results. They're not going to change, I don't think.
Yeah, well, gosh, I got to be careful how I say this. There are people that I know in baseball that
they're way smarter than me. First of all, I don't think I'm some kind of genius, dude. I don't think I'm some kind of genius, dude.
I was going to go a different direction. That these are high placed people in baseball, and egos matter. And because everything's a competition, let's say that you are the GM of the Phillies, right? There's someone always coming after your job. There's always someone looking to remove you or to undermine you, and you've got to run a fiefdom. And so there's a lot of very smart people playing very dangerous in terms of baseball games, and things like Jim Rice getting kicked out, or old Cardinals players not being allowed to talk to any, that kind of thing. That starts to happen. And some of this has nothing to do with the product on the field. Some of this has to do with control and power and ego. And that is another thing where the Dodgers seem on the surface to be a culture of like, no, I want to play there. I want to come there because I love what they do. They take this guy who's not nearly as good as me to just throw your fucking slider, and he goes out and he gets a big check when he leaves, right? Like they see that, they want that. But the ego stuff that is part of all of this, it for sure undermines certain teams, and you can see the patterns. I mean, certain teams just can't seem to. You can be as great as you want with numbers. If you can't reliably run your organization, you're not going to compete, even if you have great players, because the people like the Dodgers, who are great in all of these detailed ways across the board. When Gabe Kapler was there with them, he's like, hey, these minor leaguers are our investment. We have to feed these guys real food. And it was like the most obvious statement ever. And everybody's like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. Why are we letting them eat McDonald's every day? And so he changed that part of the culture. And now any good organization looks at the minor leagues the same way. They're like, no, like, let's make sure you guys are getting healthy. You have the right things. And there's much more attention on that one. That was part of the competition that the Dodgers won when Gabe Kapler brought that in. If you're not doing that now, you're falling behind.
Yeah. And that's another thing House said. He had 4 points. One of them was biomechanics. I can't remember the other two, but the very last thing he said was a nutrition plan. He got Tom Brady on that nutrition plan. Tom House is unbelievable, dude. More people should know about Tom House.
Absolutely. No, he is incredible. And when you look at the ways to compete, if you can have Tom House helping you, if he was still alive, Ricky Henderson, if that guy wasn't employed by a team every year to teach his people how to steal bases, you're crazy.
Right.
You're crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen that clip. It was early in the MLB TV days, and they showed it after it came alive again when Ricky passed in December. But he was talking to Harold. He's like on the little field there, the demo field. And he's like, oh, I would look for the elbow. And Harold, who stole bases, he's like, what are you talking about, the elbow? He's like, once they do this, they got to go home. And it blew Harold's mind. And this is a guy who played his whole career. And he was a fast dude. And Ricky Henderson blew his mind. When Ricky was advising Roger Cedeno when they were on the Mets together.
Yeah,
Roger stole his most. Yeah, it's incredible, right? And so there are a lot of people out there that can make a difference. And sure, stolen bases aren't all that valuable unless you're Ricky Henderson and you just steal and you get runs all the time. So there is value in having some of these guys like Tom House, and if you're going to talk about Johnny Sane, but all these guys who can get talent to be realized on the field.
Yeah, Johnny Sane. That's funny that we both thought about Johnny Sane, but I read he showed up to spring training with the Yankees with a briefcase full of tapes and inspirational books. He invented a machine called the baseball spinner. Had like it looked like a can opener on a baseball, and the handle would spin, and you could work on your release, your breaking balls and stuff just anywhere. You could do it in the taxi, you could do it on a train. Didn't believe in running his pitchers. He said you don't run the ball to home plate, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
He revitalized Whitey Ford, made Denny McClain in his 30 win year, coached Jim Cott to his only 20 win seasons, turned Wilbur Wood into a starter. And he's basically a proto Tom House dude, showing up with a briefcase full of tapes in 1961. Yeah. We're even VCRs in 1961. They said tapes. I don't know what tapes there were, but it definitely wasn't duct tape.
And they didn't say film.
Maybe
right?
it didn't say film, right?
Yeah.
Maybe slides for like a projector. I don't know. But I watched. You can watch on YouTube where he has that tool in his hand and he's showing you how to spin it.
There's so much of that it's just you're sitting there and you're a genius at whatever it is. Obviously, he was a great pitcher, but he was a genius at realizing talent. And it's like, here's the thing that I needed, right? Like when I would practice my curveball, I would throw it up to myself, and work on trying to like get the shape of my hand to be right all the time. And it was just a repetition thing. And so I'm laying in bed just throwing my ball, and just you think about these things and brilliant moments happen. And all of a sudden you've got this technique or this drill or whatever it was. And he reliably did that. He reliably, got pitchers to the next level, even if it's temporary. Like Billy Martin was brilliant, right? It was going to be temporary because a lot of ego and problems, but he could take any team and improve it just by showing up.
Right. Same with Johnny Sane. Johnny Sane wasn't that well liked.
Yeah.
Kind of a great. You got to be some kind of hard ass to make it in that environment. Yeah. Not always going to be the most likable guy.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you, you've seen me hollering about correcting WAR. Like WAR itself tends to go up, right? And I'm pretty hard on Chase Utley. I don't mind if he gets in the Hall of Fame. I want every player to get their laurels. But I look at players like Utley and Holiday, who were hurt a lot, and I struggle with how WAR handles them. So if we're going to give all that WAR, what happened at the time that they missed? So that concept of missing time and that costing the team something. What are your thoughts? You don't got to agree with me, and I know, like you're probably not 100% where I'm at, but what are your thoughts on how we evaluate players with those kind of tools?
Well, it's WAR's accounting stats, so you can't get any WAR when you're not playing in a game,
right?
It's like anything else,
right? Yeah.
What was the second thing you said after you asked after that?
It's just the whole idea that if you're not playing, then the team doesn't get the benefit of you. So
yeah, I think I tweeted at you. Like I noticed that when you said that, like in real time, I value being on the field a lot more than I do like when I'm looking at numbers. It's weird,
right?
That's definitely a a hole. I don't know what to think about that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
how you would account.
If you're going to be the GM and you hire Jacob deGrom, you know that when he's on the field, there will not be a better pitcher in all of baseball. That's just a fact. But he needs at least a domestique to come in and take over. So now I need 2 pitchers to do one pitcher's job. And so am I better off with a pitcher who's just more present? You know?
No,
I mean, I can't plan for him to be in the playoffs.
No. I mean, you can't. What can you plan for with pitching nowadays? I mean, what?
Well, fair enough. Yeah.
I don't even know what to say, man. Like I've been saying this to my buddies for a couple of years. I said, dude, I'm not even looking at the pitching. Like, who knows who's going to be there? You can't know. You have no idea. It's frustrating.
Yeah. So if we take someone like Utley and we know he's going to break his wrist or something because he plays hard, he plays a position that if you play hard, you're going to get hurt. I mean, so now we're not talking about pitching. Now we're talking about middle infield, and he's a team leader. I mean, that hurts the team when he's not there. I'm not saying he shouldn't play hard, but there is a cost to not being present, right?
Yeah, and I don't know how you account for that. Like I said, you can only get WAR when you're in a game.
Yeah. Right.
You're gonna count it up.
So when Mike Trout misses 60% of the season, Pete would say it's probably negative value that year. You know, his WAR is what it is, but when you correct it for the anti-WAR, the antimatter, draws that number down, and you're just less valuable. Now, do you need to play every game? No, you got to rest, that kind of thing. But there's real value in durability, and and I've said this a number of times that WAR is just it's not great at measuring durability and longevity. Longevity being, I'm not sure about my definition on longevity here, but it's someone who can hold their spot on a major league team. Because every year past, say, 27 and a half years old, it's less and less and less and less likely, or on the front end too, especially. But you can't hold that spot. It's just harder and harder and harder. And Pete would say that there's real value in that. It doesn't go up equally, but there's something to be said for Kenley Jansen still being able to be a closer and still having value at 37 or whatever years old he is now.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, man, when you started talking about that, I hadn't really put much thought into it, but like you said, I value it in real time. But when I look back, I don't know I really don't know what to say.
Fair enough. We have like 2 minutes left.
Okay.
What do you want to get into in that time? Anything at all?
You want to talk about the French Revolution?
Viva la Revolution!
Viva la starter, dude. That's what I'll end with. Viva la starter.
Oh my God. I would love to see a starter just be a starter. I don't need 200 innings, but I do want 180. Don't tell me
I don't need 250, but I need 200.
I want 200, but I also know that 200, like, arms start breaking. I also know that if you spin the ball and it goes this way real fast at 102 miles an hour, you are not long for the game. No matter, it just doesn't work, I love watching Dustin May. At every start, I'm like, keep going. I love it. But he will not be in the game at the end of the year. There's no way.
No, I mean, they're not going to. Like, it just blows my mind. They're not going to the Hall of Fame. There's no more Hall of Fame pitchers coming. No more Hall of Fame starters coming.
No.
You're not a great player if you only play half of a game max. You're just not.
Yeah. And when your team needs you, like last night, you're like, hey, I'm sorry. I don't want to blow out the rest of my elbow. You know?
Yeah. No one wants to see Tyler Glasnow in the game at the end. No one wants that.
Yeah.
Just when he got to that, I want it, but just because it's not going to happen. Like, no one on the team wants it. It's sad, man. Sad to see the pitching.
When he hit his innings limit, which is right around 110, when he got up there, I started paying really close attention. I love watching him pitch. I think he's great, right? But I also know it's like going to a CrossFit tournament, and everybody's like they're like, I'm doing my deadlifts. And I'm like, oh my God, you're going to blow your back out. And do you over under on days until you do, it's 8 because you're going to blow it out. But once he gets up to 110 innings, I'm looking and he's just starting to fail, and that's sad because it's predictable that his body is going to wear out at that point, And with that comes the Dodgers also holding back on who they allow in the game. Like Gonsolin probably could pitch right now, and a lot of other teams he would be, but they don't need him to pitch now, so he's recovering.
Mhm.
and that also retards your ability to have a good career.
Yeah, man. Look, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not mad. I don't hate any of the players or anything for what's going on. It's not their fault. It's not their fault.
Right.
What's going on.
Right. And I would do the same thing. I'd be
Yeah.
like, I'll worry about tomorrow. Right now, I'm going to go get this ball and throw.
Another thing quick that sketches me out about analytics is when the owners wanted to use WAR to replace arbitration. That freaked me out. And
Yeah.
kudos to the guys at Fangraphs and Sean Foreman at Baseball Reference. They were like, no, this isn't a good idea.
It's not a good idea. It's not a complete stat. Yeah.
No.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on. We should do it again, and
Appreciate it,
great
man.
talking baseball with you. Everybody should follow. Give me your handle on X, and I'll write it in here right now.
It's IBELWETZ.
Bam. Go check that out if you like baseball stuff. Thanks for coming on. Keep writing
Thanks,
on the
man.
Cuba stuff, and I will talk to you next time.
Yep.
Hang on, I'll come right back and say goodbye.
Yep.